Okay, y'all, we are back with the Beatryce prophecy. We are at chapter 10. Okay. He illuminated the letter B. He decorated the letter with a twisty, turning vine that was as green as springtime, as hopeful and insistent as the month of May. He made the bee himself bright and gold like the sun, and then he took the letter to her. He held the bee in front of his chest and said to Beatryce, "Will you tell me what this shape is?" She looked at the illuminated letter and she looked at him. She said nothing. His heart fluttered in relief and also in a strange sort of disappointment. She was not, after all, who he had imagined her to be. Beatryce looked at him for a long moment. "Brother Edic?" she said. "Yes." "Brother Edic, is it in me that I should not say, I don't know why, but I cannot lie to you. That is the letter B, and it is the first letter of my name." Brother Edic's heart sank. "If I were to give you a quill and parchment," he said, "and you heard his voice tremble, would you be able to write your name?" "Yes." "And what else?" he said. "What else? What else could you write?" She gave him a great grave look. "Anything," said Beatryce. "Any word, all words. It is right that I have told you." "Or is it right that I have told you?" "Yes," he said. She smiled. "Will I work to help you write the history of the world, then? Will I join the brothers in the chronicling of sorrowing? I would prefer to tell stories. Stories have joy and surprises in them. Do you know the story of the angel and the horse, and how in some trick of destiny the angel was given hooves and the horse given wings, and the angel danced upon the roof of the palace with her hooves, and so woke the king to good deeds, and the horse flapped his wings and flew from the world to another and did not once look behind him." "This child! I do not know that story," said Brother Edic. "How could you?" said Beatryce. She laughed. "I made it up just now." She became serious again. "But I could if you asked me to write it down for you, every word of it." The bee in Brother Edic's hands trembled as if it were alive. It leapt from his grasp and fluttered to the floor, and Swelka bent her head and snuffled it. Beatryce said gently to the goat, "No, my sweet, it is not for eating." The demon goat being called my sweet. The girl being able to read and write. It was too much, too much. What could he do? It was all beyond him. Brother Edic stared at the top of Beatryce's head. Her hair was snarled and matted, and it needed a comb and a brush. He remembered suddenly being a boy and holding his mother's brush. It had been a beautiful thing made of wood, the handle of it shaped like the tail of a mermaid, encrusted with small jewels. The back of the brush showed the mermaid's head, and with the long, flowy curls of her hair, also strewn with jewels. His father had once caught Brother Edic holding the brush, staring at it open-mouthed. "If it looks this beautiful from behind," the young Brother Edic had said to his father, "then her face must be too beautiful to look upon." "Whose face?" said his father. "The mermaid's. If only she would turn and look at me." His father had become enraged. He told him that he could not stomach the ridiculous notions, the outrageous fantasies that the boy's crooked mind conceived of. His father had beat him. He had said that he was beating the nonsense out of him. It did not work. The nonsense remained, and he was not allowed ever again to hold the brush. His father forbade it. However, if his father was not home, the young Brother Edic would sit and watch his mother brush her hair, long, thoughtful strokes that made the jewels in the mermaid's tail and hair wink and flash. His mother had beautiful hair. She had told Brother Edic more than once that women were judged for their hair and must work hard to maintain it. A woman and her hair are one and the same, his mother had said. "Beatryce," said Brother Edic. "Yes, I have an idea." Chapter 11. She tried not to think about what she could not remember, and this, of course, was not easy to do because she could not remember what she had forgotten. Could she? It was like a riddle, she thought, a riddle that cannot be solved. She could not think about what she had forgotten, but she could think about its great absence, the dark hole where all the knowledge of who she was shown to be. For minutes at a time she forgot this hole, and then she remembered it again, suddenly and terrifyingly, and as if some wind had come upon her and caught at her feet and tugged her violently towards the abyss of not knowing, not remembering. She ignored his tug. She stood very still and let the blackness, the chill of it, pull her in, and she stood as firm as she was able to, and the feeling passed. In the world, in Swelka and Brother Edic, and the morning sun and the low murmur of the pigeons on the roof returned. She thought about all of this as Brother Edict cut the hair from her head as she watched the snarled clumps of it fall to the ground. Tell me why my hair must be cut, she said to Brother Edict. Because it was too tangled for anything but cutting, said Brother Edict. There's not a brush or a comb in all the kingdom that could find its way through such a snarlsome thicket. But there's another reason, said Beatryce. Brother Edict was silent. Answelica leaned up against Beatrice's legs. What is the other reason? Asked Beatryce. If you do not fidget, said Brother Edict, I will give you a moon. You have not answered my question, said Beatryce, and I would like a star this time. Brother Edict had pieces of maple sugar candy in the pocket of his robe, and the candy was made by Brother Antone, who shaped the marble sugar into stars and half-moons and leaves and small grim-faced people. So far Beatryce had consumed a moon and a leaf, and Swelka had eaten the people. In a moment, said Brother Edict. She leaned toward her, and the smell of maple syrup in the room smelled of dust and straw and goat. Brother Edict cleared his throat. He said, The world is not always a kind place. No, she agreed. But there are sweet things to be had, he said. Yes, she said, I'm cutting your hair so that you will be safe. I don't understand, said Beatryce. Brother Edict sighed. My mother, he said, had a brush in the shape of a mermaid. The mermaid's tail and her hair were encrusted with jewels. The brush was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and I wanted something impossible from it, to have the mermaid turn and look at me. And did she ever? Said Beatryce. She did not. Beatrice closed her eyes. She imagined the mermaid, and she could see her face. It was beautiful and sad. She opened her eyes again. What do you suppose the mermaid's name was? I don't know. I think it would be important to know her name, she said. Maybe you will somehow learn it, said Brother Edict. I never did. The sun shone through the room, and the odors of the goat and the maple candy intensified, and Beatrice watched her hair fall to the ground, and she was suddenly filled with a terrible disillusion. Of one thing I am certain, she said to Brother Edict, and that is that the mermaid did not get her hair cut off. No, he said, I suppose not, but then she lived in a different world. Brother Edict bent down and put his face close to hers. His wandering eye danced around the room, considering everything, while the other eye, bright and steady, looked right at her. Beatryce, he said, when first you told me that you could read and write, you hesitated. You said that you felt it was something you should not say. Beatryce felt the breath of the dark abyss on her neck. She shivered. And that was right, said Brother Edict. It is true that it is something you should not say. In this world we live in, there is a law that states that no girl, no woman can read or write, and you must know this for your own protection. You must know this. Beatryce felt herself tip sideways. She took hold of the goat's ear. It is very dangerous for you to be who you are, said Brother Edict, and so you must pretend to be somebody you are not. But how can I pretend to be someone that I am not when I don't know who I am? You are Beatryce, said Brother Edict. You know that. You can read and you can write, and you know that. And this you must know too, that you have a true friend named Brother Edict. Beatryce nodded. And also a true friend named Answelica, she said, and tugged on Answelica's ear. Yes, said Brother Edict, that too. So that is who you are, someone with friends in the world. The rest we will figure out along the way. I have a plan, and the plan begins with the removal of your hair, even if the mermaid did get to keep hers. Will you trust me? She nodded. Her throat felt tight. Brother Edict nodded in return, and then he went back to work. Beatryce watched her hair fall to the floor. She kept hold of Answelica's ear. She thought, I am Beatryce. I have friends in the world. I no longer have hair, but I have friends. We're at chapter 12. The day after her fever broke and all the hair was cut from her head, the brothers of the Order of the Chronicles of Sorrowing gathered and had watched Beatryce clothed in a monk's robe, her head shaved, a goat at her side, take a quill in her hand and bend over a piece of parchment. The brothers watched her write. They watched her form letter after letter, and when it was done, Brother Edict held up the parchment so that every brother could see. There was a deep and sustained murmuring among the monks. How could a girl do such a thing? It must be some sort of bewitching, said Brother Antone. The letters are perfect, said Brother Adele, as if an angel had formed them. Consider the goat, said Brother Frederick. The goat is always with her. Does that demon have something to do with this? I would have you all listen, said Brother Cat. Excuse me. This child endangers us. The castle of the king is regularly sending its envoys to study the chronicles of sorrowing. What if they discover her? What then? She is but a child, said Brother Edict. She is a very dangerous child, said Brother Caddis, and surely someone is looking for her. But we can keep her hidden in plain sight, said Brother Edict. We will say that she is mute. We will say that she is a young boy of the nobility come to learn his letters, a brother in training, and in the meantime she can help us. She can write of the happenings of the world. There are never enough of us for this work. Let her help. This will give her a chance to return to her full health and strength before we send her away. Let us show her some mercy. Never in this life had Brother Edict made such a long, impassioned speech. Never before had he stood before his brethren and made such an outrageous request. And then never before had anyone mattered so much to him. Beatrice squared her shoulders. She laid her hand on Answelica's head, and just for a short time, said Brother Edict, until she is well. Answelica moved her head, looked each of the monks in the eye. The goat terrified them all into silence. She terrified them into agreeing that Beatrice could stay. And what you may well wonder about Beatrice's had Beatrice written? What words had she put down upon the parchment? These: we shall all in the end be laid to where we belong. We shall all in the end find our way home. When they were alone, Brother Edict asked Beatrice what the words that she had written had come from and what text they belonged to. I don't know, said Beatrice. They were in my head and I wrote them down. That's all I know. The lines of the text were a mystery to her, something hidden inside of her. As she was writing, she had felt these words unfurl from within her one by one and land bright and beautiful on the page. And when she had held the quill in her hand, Beatrice did not know who her people were or where she had come from, but she knew who she was. Read me the words as they were written in the great book, said the king. The counselor bent his head to the piece of parchment. He said, these words were written in the chronicles of sorrowing. I have copied them just as they appear. There will one day be a girl child who will unseat a king. Read it entire, said the king. There will one day come a girl child who will unseat a king and bring about a great change. Yes, said the king, but it is a prophecy. Does that not mean it is destined to come true? Should we infer with fate? Or should we interfere with fate? Do not doubt, said the counselor. Shall men doubt? Kings, small men doubt, but kings do not doubt. And you are a king. I will question this child when she is found, for I am king, and that it is a thing also written in the chronicles of sorrowing that I was destined to be king. Yes, your majesty, said the counselor. It is exactly right. The counselor allowed him a small, twisted smile. His dark robes gave off an oily sheen in the light from the candles that flickered around the throne of the king. And that was chapter 12. And we are at Book of the Second.